There's Tim.
The ones I stole from Rob.
And there's Todd.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Todd.
Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
And did I just hear Roger?
Don't see him yet.
It must have been Todd.
Yeah, if I leave this up, then you guys can see who's on the line, and when they talk, you can see who's talking from this little icon here.
Who's caller 2?
I don't know.
Maybe that's Roger. I thought I heard.
Hey, Roger Templin, are you on the line?
I'm on the line as well. I can't get the. Will it? If I hang up, will it still let me on my speaker on my computer?
Yeah. So Tim, Tim, I
did
can.
last time too, Mike.
He's looking at his logs in on the computer. It'll show up as a caller.
Right. Tim, it looks like your audio is coming through your computer just fine.
Okay,
So
then I'll hang up then.
Yeah, if you're also on the phone, you can probably hang up.
Okay, I'm on both, so.
Okay.
Okay.
See if caller 2 drops off.
Mm-mm.
Uh-oh. He wasn't caller 2. It looks like his
got a caller 2 and caller 3 now.
it looks
Hello,
like he's
Roger's
just...
here.
Oh, is that you, Roger?
It is.
Okay, hi. You're a caller 3 officially until I can edit your name.
Well, I like caller 3.
Okay. All right, so we got Roger. Tim, if you can hear us, I'm sorry. It looks like your audio did disconnect. I think if you go to settings, you can tell it to use your computer there for your microphone and speaker. Maybe you can try that.
Hello.
Hi, caller 4. Yes, who is this?
This is Dennis Hillhouse.
Dennis? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good. I'm in. I didn't know if it'd work or not.
And Dennis, who are you with?
The applicant working with Dean.
He's with CFS?
No, he's working with Dean. He's the guy who wants to buy
Dean Weller.
Oh, I got you. I remember. I'm sorry, Dennis. I don't think we got Tim back in the audio yet.
Let me give him a call.
Yeah. Do you have his number?
So we don't know who's caller 2?
I don't know. I don't know if the caller can identify himself from his side. I don't know if that shows up.
Hey, I think we lost you when you hung up your phone. Can you hear us?
Hello, this is Dennis. Yeah,
Okay.
I can hear you guys.
All right. We saw that your voice went off. So.
Oh, okay.
No, Dennis, you're fine. Lana's
Okay.
talking to Tim.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Bye. Okay. Tim's going to call back in.
Okay. Does anyone on the line, do you know if you're caller 2? Who's caller 2?
This is Tom Ingram. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, okay. You're caller 2, Tom. All right.
Okay, I am sorry. Yeah, I'm
No,
caller
you're good.
2. Tom Ingram, Cook Flat. Yeah, we're here for the Rifle Club.
Yeah,
I'm here with
yeah.
Dick Cooper.
We got you. I just want to get your name up there.
Sorry about that. Okay.
Okay. So do we have Tim back now? I'm not sure.
No, I don't see him yet. He must be still calling in. led Tim astray, told him to hang up.
Well, see, that's what happened to me in the meeting I was on with NPR.
Okay. Tim, are you there?
I'm here now.
All right. We got Tim back. Good.
All right,
Okay, Mr. Chair, it looks like
ready to
all
go.
the planning commissioners have signed in remotely who aren't here.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 28th DeSoto Planning and Zoning meeting. Roll call.
Manson,
Present remotely.
Templin,
Also present remotely.
Lane,
Also present remotely.
Fisher,
Also present remotely.
Schultz,
Here in person.
McPherson,
Here in person.
Chairman.
Here in person.
All right, we are ready to go, Chairman.
Okay. Item number 3, general business. Approve the planning commission agenda.
I make a motion.
Manson makes a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Roll call.
Let me just do all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Approved minutes of the planning commission meeting held on March 24th, 2020.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 24th, 2020 meeting.
We have a motion.
Manson seconds.
Manson seconds.
Okay, and Manson. Okay. All right.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect.
Item C, disclosure of conflict of interest.
Manson, none.
Lane, none.
Templin, none.
Fisher, none.
Schultz, none. None.
I have one item, Mike. I'm a member of the rifle club.
Right?
Is there any problem there?
Unless you have a financial interest
No.
in the club. If you're an employee of the club, there would be, but if you're just a member, there is not.
Okay. All right, no conflicts of interest. Disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business.
Manson, none.
Lane,
None.
none.
Fisher, none.
None. None. McPherson. Schultz, none.
Garrett, none.
Okay.
Okay, item 4, call the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentation is for the information purposes only, and no action will be taken. There is a 4-minute time limit. Seeing none. Item number 5 is public hearing. Consider a special use permit for the Mill Creek Rifle Club. Brad?
All right, thank you, Chairman. First item on of our business items is the public hearing for a special use permit for the Mill Creek Gun Club. As you know, the Gun Club's been in operation for quite some time in their location. In 2011, we approved a site plan for them, which is included in your packet as Exhibit C. It shows what the governing of the special use permit as it was tied to the specifics of the site plan. What the Gun Club has asked for is a change to the site plan. They're not asking for any other changes to the terms, conditions, language, or anything like that. They've just had an opportunity to expand the club and revise some of the shooting. They've added several shooting ranges, one for the City of Shawnee Police Department, another one for Johnson County Sheriff's Department, and they also have a lot of community fire department, metro area fire departments that use the range for practicing, and it's been a really good relationship, not only for the Gun Club, but I think for also all law enforcement agencies in the area. So I think as a whole, the gun club and the shooting ranges are a benefit to the city of DeSoto. So with that, I'll just go briefly through the staff report. They did submit an application on March 30th. We did advertise in the legal record. Notification letters were sent out to the nearby property owners, and a sign was posted on the property about the meeting or the public hearing tonight. Since the notifications were distributed, I did receive an email from a nearby property owner who's in favor of the change. It was actually Dave Penny. Actually, he called me and did send an email as well, so we spoke briefly about it. So anyway, he was in favor of, or had no concerns about the change in the site plan. As you know, the property is zoned M1 light industrial. This zoning district does allow for gun clubs and archery ranges in the M1 district with a special use permit, which the gun club has and maintained and has been a stalwart member as far as upholding their criteria for the conditions under the special use permit. I'm not going to go through each one of these additional line items. I just really want to talk about what the changes were in the footprint and the activity of what goes on at the gun club will not be affected in any way, shape, or form by the addition of these about 3 ranges out at the site. In fact, I think it's a better layout than the previous one. If you looked at the previous site plan, there was a road relocation, some other items that, and not that the road network out there is heavily traveled. It's a gravel road that's only used by gun club members and the agricultural uses that are down in that area, so it's very lightly traveled other than the gun club members. But I do think it's a better layout than what was proposed in the 2011 special use permit. So anyway, there's really no changes to the activities or anything like that out the gun club. It just allows additional ranges to be installed, and it amends, the primary amendment, as I see it, is changing the road network to the existing conditions that are basically out there right now. So with that, I will stand for any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
All right, I'm a little confused. This is Ian. Is this what they want to go to?
No, that's the previous one. That's what they currently have right now.
Because this says firing range improvements.
Well,
this is what they have, and they want to go to the bigger.
Yeah. They've hired Cook, Flatt, and Strobel and put together a complete site plan packet, which actually is more of engineering drawings that show how the berms are going to be created, and so make sure that
That's right.
all the safety features need to be incorporated in the new ranges.
John, do you have any?
It looks pretty self-explanatory to me.
Does anybody have any comments for Brad?
Hey, Brad, this is Roger.
Hi, Roger.
So the special use permit that was approved back in 2011, you said was tied to the existing site plan that's part of Schedule C or the Exhibit C?
That is correct.
Were there any other terms on that special use permit other than this is your site plan?
Yeah, there were, but I actually didn't research those particularly because they weren't asking for any changes in the terms of the agreement. It was just an updating and change of the site plan only.
Well, for example, their website speaks of the range availability and being able to shoot there between 6 and 10 p.m., but the materials say it's between 7 and 10 p.m. that they submitted with this one. I'm just wondering, is there any limitation on our existing special use permit as to the hours of operation?
Well, I could probably run and find the ordinance here real quick if you wanted me to go look, but
I don't recall. I was having one on that. We went over that once before, the time limit. And nobody saw any real problem with the time limit at that time. Do you remember that, Mike?
Yeah, well, I definitely do. And actually, that one in 2011 was at least the second or third kind of version that we've had since incorporating. And I do remember all the the maximum number of people allowed at one time, the maximum number of club members allowed, things like that. I do recall there being something like that. I can see if I can find server the previous approval.
Somebody having a microphone issue?
Yeah, I think it was Dennis H. I just muted you, Dennis. It sounded like you had some static on your mic.
Mike, while you're looking for that, I've got another question for Brad.
Okay.
The application stated that the proof of ownership was attached to the application. Who actually owns this ground?
Well, I guess, Dick, are you there?
Yes,
he's the-
I can respond. Mill Creek Rifle Club Incorporated in the state of Kansas owns the property. It was donated by the Hodgkin Powder Company.
Okay, so the corporation now owns the real estate. I just noticed from the website it indicated that you were under a lease, but you actually own the real estate now.
Yes. You know, we've tried to correct the website. It's been difficult.
I understand. Well, it's the only way that I could find anything. I've never been down there, so I didn't really know. But I will tell you that I live 4 miles away, and I do hear you shooting. And I am interested in your hours of operation because I can sit on my back deck at 7 o'clock in the morning and I can hear gunfire.
We generally, I was surprised to hear the 6 o'clock time, but when we train and orient new members, it's from 7 to 10. And really, most of the ranges, once it's dark, they're closed. There's only a few ranges that have lights.
Right. I guess since we're talking about it, I'm also curious as to what limitations you have on the kinds of weaponry you have, because I do hear from my back deck, and it may be because you got a bunch of people shooting at the same time, but there are weapons that I'm hearing sounds like automatic weapon fire.
Yes, I can address. Yeah, let me address that. I appreciate your asking the question. The club does not permit full auto shooting, period, or simulated full auto shooting, such as a bump stock or a device on the trigger, that type of thing. I think it's Rule 16. It just I can't say it would never happen, but it's against the rules. Now, that being said, occasionally the law enforcement agencies might train with full auto weapons, and we pretty much let the law enforcement agencies train the way we don't want to dictate their training and tell them what they can or cannot do. So it might be that, but I'm out there quite a bit, and I rarely ever hear them shoot full auto, but occasionally they do.
It's just noticeable when they do.
Hey,
It's really noticeable. Yes.
Roger, pardon me, I was looking at your, this is Brad, I was looking at the application, and it does say shooting can only take place from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's in the letter from Richard Cooper.
Yes.
It also outlines several of the, conditions about membership and how many people can be out there at any one time.
We will encourage groups, law enforcement, for example, they may want to go out and set up a range in a particular way for training. And we'll say, look, you can go out at 6, you can go out at any time, but just don't start shooting until 7.
But one of the factors that Brad had indicated was that, it's not detrimental to nearby properties in terms of pollution, including noise pollution. And I am a bit concerned about the 7 a.m. tee times for starting to shoot things if people can hear it. Now, I can hear it where I live, but it may just be a quirk of geography of why I can hear it so well. But I don't know whether any of the rest of you hear it in town, but I'm curious as to whether or not the 7 a.m. start is really the appropriate start time for a use of this kind on this property.
Well, I guess the one thing I might, add to that, Roger, is the gun club is not asking for a change to that. They're just asking a change for the site plan, and that 7 a.m.
That was my point of asking.
Is
sorry, that was my point of asking what was the existing special use permit.
So, Mike's still,
grab it.
we're just going to grab it out of the file, out of the ordinance file, get the hard copy. But I did pull it at one time and read through it, but I didn't, as I said, I didn't research it terribly closely because they weren't asking for any changes to the language in the previous approved special use permit.
Brad. Just might comment too that the city's ordinance regarding any noise is effective at 7 a.m. So, I mean, it's not allowed prior to that, but the regular noise ordinance begins at 7 a.m. because of contractors.
Okay, thank you, Lana.
So I've got the ordinance, and it was from 2011. Hours of operation, 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m.
5 to 11.
5 to 11 p.
Mike and Lana just pointed out our noise ordinance kicks in at 7 a.m. for
Yeah, although I'm not sure that by the having this special use permit that it doesn't waive some restriction that otherwise might apply with a noise permit. I don't know how you expect a gun range to meet the noise ordinance.
Especially
if the sheriff's department's got training at 5 a.m.
Yeah, but you can certainly expect them to meet the time.
There are restrictions on approximate vehicular traffic trips per day, 50 trips per day. Yeah, I'm trying to think how I can get this information digitally to you quickly. I think I could scan it, send it to myself, and throw it up on the screen.
I don't know that I particularly need to see it, but I do think it's important that if we're talking about a special use permit for this site, that it has the terms in it that they should be bound by, as opposed to simply just this is an expansion of the site plan. I do think it's appropriate to include that, and certainly if we have a special use permit that permits them to begin shooting at 5 a.m., I've got a real problem with that. The 7 a.m. start time, to the extent that that's arguably the noise ordinance, I get it. But it is an imposition to the neighbors, at least those that can hear it. And there's a nice string of gunfire in the background while you're sitting on your deck drinking a cup of coffee.
Have we ever had any other complaints about noise, or either early in the morning or in the evening times, as far as the city knows?
Not that I recall.
I have not received any. I guess that's why I put in that statement that, and just talking to, we got a few, or Steve Chick's a member of the gun club, and I've known some other people who are part of the gun club. And just, I have not heard any complaints on noise.
I can sit on my porch on Saturday mornings and stuff, and I can hear it, but it's not extremely loud. But a lot of that's the nature of the river valley. Things echo through there really well when it's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand that. I mean, I'm 4 miles away, for crying out loud. It's kind of weird that I can hear it.
Well, is there any, I guess we still have to open the public hearing, but is there any, maybe if there's, with the ordinance, the current ordinance saying 5 a.m. is the start time, Dick, would you be opposed if the planning commission action was, as part of their recommendation, the council changed that to 7 a.m.?
No, no, the club would not be opposed to that.
If I could follow up on that, could I also maybe suggest or ask you the question of whether the club would be opposed to having some sort of a limitation on fully automatic firearms, with the exception of law enforcement?
It's effectively in place now, and there's no plans to change that. So I'd rather not see it in writing, but that's the only way that a full auto can be used out there is with law enforcement.
The other exception you had on there was club sanctioned events. Have you ever had club sanctioned events where you were allowing full automatic weapons?
Absolutely not. No, there are no fully automatic weapons, period. And the only exception to that are law enforcement.
Roger, I have a question for you. So do you know, do they start at right at 7 a.m. or are you aware of or I'm just curious.
It's the times that I hear it, or the times that I notice it, or the times that I happen to be outside and kicking around. That's typically for me going to be a weekend. So I don't know that I, could be the right arbiter to say when I hear gunfire or when I don't. I will tell you, as of this last weekend, I certainly did hear it. It probably was after 7 a.m., but it was before 8. That was enough of it. I noticed it.
Right.
And like I say, it's not an incredible nuisance, but I do think it's something that we ought to consider, at least as one of the elements that we are required to look at a special use permit, as to what is the impact upon surrounding properties, and it certainly does create noise. Is it worse than my neighbor firing up his lawnmower at 7 a.m.? No, probably not. So I mean, if he can mow his yard at 7, I suppose they can shoot guns. I don't know that I have a problem with that, but I do think it probably ought to be limited to that sort of a time frame. I've got one other question. Maybe it's for the applicant. I don't really know how you want to handle this, but the drawings of the extension, the new improvements, they have the name that's on the drawings is the Sherwood Lake Club. I'm guessing that was just an error.
Yeah, we'll have Mr. Ingram maybe address that, but no, it's Mill Creek Rifle Club. Must be an error.
It looks like it's the right design. It just thinks this has the wrong name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be a glitch. We probably copied a plan over, and then that slipped through. What sheet did you see that on?
It's on.
I see it on the title sheet.
Yeah, it's on.
Title sheet, site plan, the alternative landscape plan, all of them.
No kidding. Huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just on the side. I figured it was the right design. It looks like it's the right curve for the river. It just has the wrong name.
Well, that is just a glitch, and I am sorry. We will
No problem. No problem.
check
As long as
that
we're talking
out.
about the right thing.
That fixed. It's like with engineering, you can look at a plan 100 times, and then somebody else picks it up and, yeah, picks it right out the first time. So.
Oh, believe me, I've had plenty of things leave my office with the wrong name on it or a misspelling or alias. It happens. I totally get it.
And Mike, this is Barry Zimmerman. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Barry, we can. I'm glad you got on.
Yeah. Hey, I got one question regarding the current entrance that takes you to the LE, the law enforcement ranges. Does that go away in the new plan?
That is correct. Yeah, once that site plan, Barry, this is Brad Weisenberger. Yeah, the change of the site plan, that road network from the 2011 plan would go away.
And so does the new access road that's on there, does that run right to the edge of the property line?
Yes, that's how it's being shown, correct.
And commissioners,
Is it your property right to the south?
yeah, I was going to explain. Barry is the property owner just directly to the south of the site.
Okay. You had an easement before.
Yeah, the Rifle Club and myself have an agreement on that. That current road that they have in there, it runs over onto my property, and then I've been farming a little bit on theirs on the east end of it. We have a contract agreement to that.
It looks like you won't be farming the east end of that anymore.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we do need to open the public hearing at some point, and then.
Why don't we just go ahead and do that right now? Mike, are you still looking for, trying to send it out?
No, you go ahead. I see Mr. Zimmerman, I believe, would be the only one that I see on this list that might be a member of the public wishing to comment. But if there is anybody online, they can speak up.
Okay, at this time, we'll open up public hearing on the special use permit for Mill Creek Rifle Club. Do we have anybody out there that would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Does staff have any further questions for the applicant or Brad?
I did have one thing to point out to the commission. The installation of the berms will require a floodplain development permit from the city, which is an administrative task that I do. But part of that will be the applicant has to submit to the State Division of Water Resources an analysis to show that the berms aren't going to cause any flooding problems with the Kansas River. And I see that I haven't seen that information yet, but before we allow the construction, we'll have to get that certification from the state. I see in some of their exhibits here, there's cross sections referencing to a hydraulic model, so it looks like they've probably already done the work. So just want to make that clear.
Do you need that in part of the motion, or?
No, I don't. It'd just be part of the issuance of building permits for the berms before they start the berms.
Okay. Any other questions for?
No.
No.
Would entertain a motion?
Well, I do want to have some discussion about this, Bob, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'm looking at the existing site plan or the existing special use permit under item number 7. it talks about short-term on-site camping. Does the club still do any of that, or do you have any on-site camping?
Yes, it's not very often, but occasionally the Boy Scouts will camp out there and then they will shoot. And certainly with all of the appropriate range officers and that type of thing. That might happen 2 or 3 times a year. Occasionally there will be a weekend to shoot, and some folks may come in their RVs, and then there are hookups out there. But other than that, there's really, I mean, you've got to have a tent or you got to have an RV. There's no other overnight accommodations.
Are the hookups shown on your site plan?
I don't know. And it's just electrical hookups. It's not sanitary.
Yeah. Not dropping black water, which is good. So usually the folks who, your hookups are probably on your asphalt, right?
Looks like, Mr. Cooper, you're muted your mic.
Oh, sorry. Here I am. Yep. Thank you. Okay, so if you drive in on the gravel, then there are 2 buildings, and that's kind of a parking lot in that gravel area. The building on the upper left is the clubhouse. The building on the lower right is the pavilion. And then right behind the pavilion in the grassy area is generally where they would camp or have their RV hookups. And you might be able to drill in a little closer, and you might be able to pick out a few of the electrical things. Well, I guess not. So anyway, but there's a few out in there, but this is where they park.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Not by way of this a question, but more by way of discussion. It seems to me that if we're going to be doing this as a special use permit, that we ought to be renewing a special use permit that's consistent with what the applicant has said in their application. You know, there's things such as the hours of operation, such as the trip traffic, because it's different than what this trip traffic under here is different than what was suggested. You know, your limits of your members, et cetera, those kinds of things. It was the idea, I guess, to just simply remove the old site plan and attach it to this existing special use permit. And if so, I'd be opposed to that. I mean, I think what we ought to have is a new special use permit and have it attached to it with the updated information.
Your comment on that, Brad?
Well, I guess at this point, I think we've had as much discussion as we've, I think we've flushed out all the issues at this point. You know, it's the planning commission's choice whether you want to get into some of the issues with the existing special use permit and potentially change those hours.
Would we do this? We're talking about just this road change right now, right?
And adding the additional ranges.
Right. Do we come back at a different time and go through this other stuff?
Well, I guess that would be up to the council if they wanted to revoke or ask that to be opened back up. But right now, the applicant is just asking for a change in the site plan.
Right. And that's all we're doing tonight. It's just a site plan change.
See, I look at this as nothing more than any company in DeSoto that's adding a new building to their existing situation. We're not going to go through the entire original paperwork for somebody to add a new building to an existing organization. That's the way I see this.
Yeah, I guess I disagree. I mean, I think what you have is a special use permit, and that what they're asking a modification to it, which I believe is appropriate, that at least the special use permit be consistent with what the applicant said in their application. And among those things specifically, where the shooting takes place from 7 to 10, well, that's different than what's in the special use permit. And then the vehicular traffic, maybe up to 100 per day on Saturday and Sunday, which is different than what this says. So, you know, I would think you ought to have that consistent, but, you know, it's, I suppose it's up to the body to decide whether this should be seen as a change in site plan or a special use permit. To me, it's a special use permit, and it should include the terms that are how they're using the property.
Your comments, Mike?
You know, I think it's appropriate, certainly if when this goes to the city council to change the site plan will require a new ordinance. If nothing else, just a revision ordinance that says the old site plan's out, the new site plan's in. And if during the course of that we want to tweak the hours of operation or the vehicle trips per day, or really any of those elements that are in the existing use permit, up to and including things we haven't even discussed yet, that's under the purview of the Planning Commission to do so at this time. Now, the applicant might say, that's not worth it. We don't want to lose our ability to go shoot our, you know, to start shooting at 5 a.m. or some of these other parameters. They might reach a point where they withdraw the application and we just go back to the old site plan and the old. But to that degree, you know, the process that we're under is a special use permit. It's akin to a zoning, and so all those parameters are open. You know, it's not like the applicant has an ability to just request a new site plan and keep everything else frozen in place, and that's the only thing. So it does open everything up. Now, technically it does, and legally I think it does. But it is up to the Planning Commission as a whole to determine whether or not you think that this change in zoning or a change in conditions since the approval of the initial use permit in 2011 warrant future considerations of the use restrictions that they're currently under. You might decide that it does. You might decide that it doesn't. You might decide that the applicant has already said that 7 o'clock's okay, so that'd be the recommendation. So it really is up to the commission as to whether or not you want to delve into those other use limitations that are in the current permit. Otherwise, we will have an ordinance for the council's consideration that just articulates the current parameters with the new site plan. So it could be as simple as a swap, but there will be an ordinance. And so I would recommend, if you want to do that, include that in your motion, that, you know, the parameters of the existing use will carry forward. We're just changing the site plan. That would be appropriate. You could also include in your motion that recommend the changes of hours and, you know, some other specifics associated with the use that you feel are appropriate.
Okay. How do the other commissioners feel about this?
This is Linda. I feel like there hasn't been any complaints, noise complaints or anything. So I understand it's inconvenient to listen to the shooting sometimes, but it is our law enforcement agency trying to train their officers. So I'd like to take that into consideration on anything like that. And the traffic may have picked up from original, but if it's not causing any problems and no one has any issues with it, I really don't see why it would need to be addressed, but that's just my feeling on it.
Tim, how do you feel about it? Is he online?
Yeah, he is. I don't know. Tim, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you have any comments on this, Tim?
I kind of agree with Linda, what she said. So My mom actually lives pretty close to that shooting range, just right off Cedar Creek, and I'm always constantly at her house. And I can't hear nothing out there, and she's up on top of the hill. So I don't know. So
How about you, Todd?
No real problems with it. I mean, I get where they're coming from, which should be consistent with the information presented. But I would guess, I mean, the applicant indicated he didn't have concerns with it, saying that it was 7 to 10. I mean, they presented this document stating this is what it is. So I don't know that they would have large disagreement to if somebody wanted to make it this document they provided with the application what it is. I don't know that there's an issue with that if they're presenting it. So I don't have any concerns.
Okay.
Chairman, I might point out if you looked at Mr. Cooper's letter, some of the information he is providing is his approximation of how many people typically use that in a day. So I don't know at that point he's saying we have 100 members coming and going on Saturday or Sunday. It's just providing some information on what his approximation is on some of the items. Other things, as far as like the shooting can only take place from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., that's pretty clear. The number of employees and monthly hours and things like that are pretty defined, but occupancy and things like that are sort of his estimation on what's happening out there.
Okay. Anything?
I don't have any problems with it.
I'm good with it.
This time we'd like to entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion that do we forward this to the city council? Is that
Correct. Yeah, it's a recommendation.
Recommendation to City Council.
to recommend to the city council we approve the special use permit for the gun club?
Can I ask for clarification on that? What are we asking them to prove? Are we just saying that we want to change the site plan without looking at the special use permit? Is that what the motion is?
Didn't you say that we'll go back to the?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that the motion, if that's what you want to do, suggest that the motion it state that we're approve the new site plan and continue all previous conditions, existing conditions with the previous use permit. I think that would be appropriate if that's what you want to do.
Okay. I recommend that we approve the special use permit with recommending the existing conditions.
We have a motion.
Hold on just a second. Let me make sure
All
I
right.
get the wording correct here. What was it that you said, Mike? I have to recommend approval of the newly proposed site plan to the city council with
all the previous special use permit conditions.
with the previous conditions of the special use permit. Okay. All right. And a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Would you entertain an amendment to that? And that
You want to?
I would like to propose.
What
an
amendment do you want? Roger.
Sorry, Bob.
What amendment did you want to add?
I would propose an amendment for the city council to review the existing conditions in light of the current use by the applicant.
Council to review the existing conditions. I didn't hear that. Roger, would you repeat that for the clerk, please? To review the existing
amendment to ask the city council to review the existing terms of the site plan in light of the applicant's current use. Sorry, I didn't mean site plan, I meant special use permit.
Okay.
We also need to include, it says on the conclusion that for the term of 20 years with 1-year extensions after the initial 20-year period. Do we need to have that in there, Lana?
That's up to whoever makes the motion. So first of all, we need to go back and ask if Commissioner Schultz is willing to make that amendment. Then we need to amend that. And then if he is, then Commissioner McPherson, who seconded it, will have to amend his second. So we have everybody square. So Chairman, leave it to you for discussion.
Okay. Johnny, you want to restate that?
Yeah, I will make the amendment that recommend the approval of the special use permit with the term of 20 years with annual 1-year extension after the 20-year period.
Commissioner Schultz agreed to the motion and also include the term of 20 years with the annual 1 year.
Yes.
And include the term.
Would you like to read that whole motion back?
I will. All right, here we go, commissioners. So we have a motion by Commissioner Schultz to recommend approval of the newly proposed site plan to the City Council. And that is with the council to review the existing terms and conditions of the special use permit in light of the applicant's current request. And also to include the term of the special use permit of 20 years with annual 1-year extensions after the initial 20-year period. Does that sound right to everyone? Commissioner?
Sounds good to me.
Second?
Yes.
Sound?
Ian?
You good with that?
I guess.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Manson,
Manson, yes.
Lane,
Lane, yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Fisher,
Fisher, yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Schultz,
Schultz, yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. Motion carried.
Okay. Item B, consider a text amendment allowing auto sales in the C1 zoning district. Brad?
All right, thank you, Chairman. This is a continuation of our discussion on the text amendment that would allow auto sales in the C1 district. After our meeting last time when we came up with some pretty standard conditions, I did send them to our city attorney, Patrick, for codification that would be for language that would be specifically put in the city code. And as far as, and Patrick put those together, that's shown in your packet, starting with, I guess, initial P. That's where it would fit into the city code. Pretty much the general requirements are exactly as, or very near to the point as we had discussed at the previous Planning Commission meeting. There are a few exceptions. Item E, Patrick added, he felt that only allowing antique autos was a little bit restrictive, and there should be a little bit of leniency should, say, there are later model vehicles, say a 2002 or something that hasn't got to the antique status, should still be allowed to be sold at the potential dealership. So he put in there 80% of the vehicles must be defined as an antique under Kansas law. So there does give the applicant a little bit of room to find something that's just a little bit newer than 35 years old. The other thing that Patrick modified a little bit was the site plan. There does need to be some sort of architectural development plan, but he codified it under Article 11 of the DeSoto zoning regulations. That would be still submitted to the planning commission. So this is now, typically we talk about site plans as exterior items, but this would be interior in this instance because we're not allowing any kind of exterior yards, storage, vehicle displays, or anything like that. And then we did talk about whether or not a structural engineer needs to evaluate the building. Now, in Dean's case, he does have a second floor, but Patrick pointed out many of the buildings in downtown don't have a basement or a lower level. So he does give the city engineer the administrative power to say, yes, they should do a structural study, or no, they don't need to. He can waive that requirement. So those are the two things the three things that Patrick expanded upon from, or modified from the Planning Commission's directives that we had at the March meeting. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that y'all may have.
Commissioners have any questions for Brad on this?
The only thing I got on this
is I had one question regarding the proposed signage. You know, one of the cool things about the building is the nostalgic sign that's outside. If this special use permit goes to somebody else, would that type of sign still be allowed?
You have a comment on that, Mike?
City's sign regulations are different than what that old sign is.
Yeah, so if the sign remains, there's no problem. It would, if it's not allowed otherwise, which I don't know if it would or wouldn't be, but even if it wasn't, it would be grandfathered. Existing non-conform. If it's non-conform, I don't think. I'm not sure that the sign up there wouldn't be, even if it was a new application, wouldn't be approved. I don't know. I haven't reviewed that, but regardless, it would be allowed to stay.
So I guess, Mike, if it were not in compliance with the current ordinance, it could stay, but if it were damaged or had to be removed due to a storm or something like that, then they would have to.
Yeah, that's true. That could be a hurdle, right?
So
I'm not trying to complicate it. I just think that's one of the coolest things about the building. So I hate to see something have to make the sign go away.
Anybody else have any questions for Brad?
I just wanted to make sure the part with the structural engineer with going by where they're working on the church and the unforeseen issues that they've had with some of the structure that wasn't obvious to begin with, if they were actually going to do that. I know a lot of the buildings up through there have had termites in certain areas and things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the building has had cars and stuff on that floor for as long as I can remember.
Sure.
And I'm sure it's still sturdy, but it's always nice to have that piece of paper that said, yeah, we looked at it and it's good.
Right. Well, like I said, Patrick has given that lenience or that authority to a city engineer to make that determination whether a structural evaluation needs to happen.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? At this time, we'll open up the public hearing on this. Does anyone wants to make any comments about it in the public? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any other discussion on this item? Need a motion
This would also be a recommendation
to the city council?
Yeah.
Second.
Who made it? I didn't.
I didn't hear.
Sorry, we didn't hear the motion. I was speaking over you. Whoever made the motion, sorry.
Well, I'm happy to make the motion. I would move recommendation of approval of the text amendment to the city council.
And who is that?
Roger.
Okay.
We have a motion.
I'll take a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Manson,
Manson, yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Fisher,
Fisher, yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion carried.
Okay, we have no old business, new business. Now, item number 7, consider final plat for Brook West 2.
All right, thank you, Chairman. We have before you is a final plat for Brook West Estates Phase 2. This property is currently unplatted. However, it was submitted as a preliminary plat. So the preliminary plat for this property has been approved, but the final plat was never brought forward to the Planning Commission or the City Council and has not been filed with Johnson County. So for our first step was we actually went back to 2003. This is 17 years ago. The preliminary plat was approved, and looked at that and wanted to confirm that it still met the standards and the intent of the final plat. And our evaluation is that it does meet the intent of the preliminary plat. One thing that I might point out is there's an access easement that's actually shows on lot 16, I believe. That is no longer part of the final plat. I think at one time this tract might have been considered for the homeowners association or something along those lines. So that's why that access easement is in there. However, the applicant has indicated that on lot 28 now with the proposed final plat that property will be for sale and actually has a buyer interested in this tract to build a home on. So there won't be any dedication or any. Those are all 5 buildable lots or building lots that the applicant is asking for. So I just wanted to point that out as far as there might be a slight difference in the preliminary plat and the final plat as far as some of the usage. The zoning has not changed. It's still R1. This district, it does meet all the conditions of the R1 district. We do have some standard items that were reviewed for the final plat. It does meet all the conditions that we require as far as bringing to the city council. There will be some public road dedication. The cul-de-sac and the little bit of road will be dedicated to the city. There will be some public infrastructure involved with the water lines and sanitary sewer line extensions. Those will all be done with within our city code and our requirements for bonding and building into our standards. All those things apply to this property. With that, we've met with the applicant actually about 6 months ago on this, and where this sort of proposed idea came up, and sort of took a little while to get it final to my desk and through the Planning Commission. It's pretty straightforward. We are actually starting to run low on some buildable lots in DeSoto. The Arbor Ridge development is going pretty well. So it would be nice to have a few more that are able to be marketed in DeSoto at this time. So with that, I will stand for any questions that you all may have.
Does any commissioners have any questions for Brad?
Manson, none.
Fisher, none.
Lane, none.
Templin, I've got a question. So, Nate isn't here, right? He's not on the line.
Yeah,
he's here.
Nate, you're here?
Yes.
So is lot
Yes.
28 the one you were talking about building on? Just so I get my bearings. Did you ever thought about doing that at one point?
Originally, yeah, that was the plan.
That was the one you were thinking about, right?
Right.
So this change makes that just one big lot as opposed to kind of an isolated lot, which is what the preliminary plat had.
I honestly, I can't remember why we had that access easement on there. Been too long, but I do have this lot reserved. Architect and his wife are planning on doing a custom home on it.
Okay. I mean, the preliminary plat, I think that was access basically back to lot 16, which was this 250,000 square foot lot in the back, which, if I'm remembering right, was one you were thinking about before. But now 28 is just has that whole tract.
Right. I think we widened the frontage to a 90-foot street frontage,
Okay.
so it could be built on the street or back into the woods, either one.
Okay. And the way you've got lot 31 now, I guess these are all sewered lots, right?
Yes.
So we're probably not worried about the size there of lot 31. That's a little different, I think, than what you had before. Probably not a whole lot, but doesn't have the square footage on there, I don't think.
It's 12,205.
Okay.
That's square footage.
Yeah, Roger, all these lots, even lot 28, will be part of the city's sanitary sewer system. Nate indicated to me that they're going to pump and lift the sewage from the prospective home up to the sewer line.
Right. So we're not worried about putting septic in any of these, so that's not a concern. Okay, thank you.
Commissioners have any other questions for Mr. Harding?
No.
I would like to entertain a motion.
Planning Commission approves. You're the approving body on a final plat.
So I'll make a motion to approve, what is this, the final plat of Copper Ridge, for Copper Ridge Development Company for the 5 lots.
It's Brook West.
Brook
West
Estates 2.
Well, I said the company, okay. Brook West Estates 2.
Tongue
Right.
twister.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Lane,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Manson,
Manson, yes.
Fisher,
Fisher, yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion carried.
Hey, Bob, before we move off of this,
Okay.
as I understand it, that was final approval, so this probably doesn't need to go to the city council or anything further, but I did
Well,
want to point out, if it did need to go someplace else, page 3 of 5 of the staff report, looks like there's a typo there. The final plat application for Hike 10 Commerce Park, that's probably not what was meant.
Yeah, well, Roger, we'll go to the council for, they need to accept the easements and right-of-ways. But other than that,
Well,
the
you might want
plans.
to take care of that.
Correct.
That's
I
the
will.
only thing I'm.
Yeah, I saw that as we were standing here. I was looking at the staff report.
Thank you.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any comments or questions for staff on anything going on in the city?
Wow, don't see that on the agenda. Anything. Wow.
I guess I have a question. I think I was filling out the end of Robert's term. Do you know if I was reappointed or have we done anything with that? I think he was supposed to be done in April.
Who? Roger? Is this Roger speaking?
Was he appointed just to finish Richard's term, or did he get?
Oh, so you finished Richard's term, right?
Right. So I think I'm done unless I get reappointed.
Okay.
I think he's.
We'll check in. We'll check in. If you need to be reappointed, I'll let the mayor know. So the way we've done that, and I think,
Get rid of me.
yeah, you continue to serve if you're willing, and it's completely valid. So let us check up on the terms there, Roger.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions for Mike or motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Another successful telemeeting.
Who made the motion? You did? You second? I was looking at something else for Mike, so I missed it. Sorry.